Hey there, and welcome back to the Mama with a Calling podcast. Happy Monday. Today's episode is going to come from some client calls that I had this week, because when I see that there is a common block that seems to be coming up for multiple people, then I know it's probably a broader issue for many women, and I wanted to speak on that today. So the issue that came up for these clients was the same, but it actually presented itself in different ways. So the issue was not knowing what to do next. So for one client, it was coming up as not getting started on her business at all. And on another, it was just not knowing what to do next and actually feeling kind of overwhelmed in that process. So it's really the same issue though. It's just not knowing what to do. What's the next step? And this is very common. If you're an entrepreneur, then you have definitely felt this, because there are so many things that you want to do. There are so many things that you could do, yet you don't know how to choose what to do next. And this often results in either not taking action at all or staying busy because you're willing to work, like you're here for this. But since you aren't really sure what you should be doing, or what you should be focusing on, you just start working on stuff, right? You're just like busy, just like grabbing at things to do. And this doesn't feel quite right. Like, it's not quite what you're supposed to be doing. And, if you're in the boat of, I don't know what to do, so I'm not taking action, that will just lead to frustration. And if that's you, then you know what that feels like, because you know that sitting there thinking about it isn't what you want to be doing, at least not forever. Of course, there is a need to think about it and to plan a little bit, but at some point you have to take action, right? To move forward, to get started on your business. And of course, that's what compels clients to come to me is like, okay, I don't know how to get started. I know that I'm ready, but I don't know what to do. And so they're coming forward. And that could be you if you wanted to book a call and actually ask for help. Or it could be that you're just like, okay, I am tired of thinking about it all the time and planning and all of this. I'm ready to take action, but what do I do? And so you might be ready to just start actually deciding to move instead of just sitting. And then the other boat could be, if you're staying busy and working on a bunch of different things, this can cause overwhelm or even burnout because you're working a lot, right? But you can feel that it's not getting you anywhere, that your effort just kind of falls flat because you don't know if what you're doing is actually working toward any goal, and you're not really seeing any fruit, any benefit from the work you're putting in. And that can start to feel very frustrating and overwhelming because if you don't, we do have to work hard, but if you don't know that the work you're putting in is actually leading you towards a specific direction, leading you toward a specific goal, then you're just kind of running around working and not actually, you don't know if you're getting anywhere, right? So first, I do want to say before I dive into the solution here, first I want to say that there is no shame in either of these options. So I think that as I was thinking about these two scenarios, so often what happens is the way we stay stuck as well. Not only do we not know what to do and how to go, but if you start shaming yourself, that does not help either. If you start saying like, I'm ridiculous, I've been thinking about this business for months, like I've never, why haven't I taken action? And people are telling you like, hey, I've heard you talk about a business for a while. I don't see anything coming out of it. Or if you are busy and kind of running around everywhere, shaming yourself for not being focused or not getting things done, or, both of these have happened to me before, by the way. And, I just remember my husband being like, you're working a lot, but I'm not seeing a lot of benefit for all the work you're doing. Right. And even that, but you might start to feel people call you out basically. And you can either shame yourself and internalize that and not move forward because that's not going to help you take action, right? Or you can say, you know what, you're right. Like I'm not really going anywhere. I'm not really doing anything. Why is that not happening? So I just want to say that no shame, because it makes sense that you would do this, that you would have this response if you don't have the tools to see where you're stuck and then how to get out of that rut. Right? The only thing you know to do is what you're doing. And so that's the point of this episode, is to bring it to the forefront, to show you what's happening, to help you shed light on that and see it for what it is so that you can move forward. Okay? So no shame. We're just going to see it and we're going to deal with it. And then we're going to move forward. Now, I'm not saying just do it. Like just stop making up excuses and just do it. We're going to talk through some of the things that might be in the way that could be preventing you from taking action. And hopefully after you hear this, you'll be able to really step back and make this decision. Even if you have a bunch of, mental drama, of fear, all those things coming up, these things are going to help you work through that. So if this is you and you've been doing this, then humble yourself and admit that you're in one of these two situations. But if you're experiencing a place where you're stuck in your business, admitting that you're stuck, right? And then commit to changing your actions so that you can do the work that God wants you to do. Because in both of these cases, you're not truly moving forward with your business to reach the people that God wants you to reach, right? If you're not started on your business, then no business is happening. People aren't getting affected. The message that you have is not getting out there. If you are busy but not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing that are actually moving your business forward, then people might be hearing your message and they might be affected, but probably not, or not in the way that they could be, right? And this is exactly where the enemy wants you. Whether it's the enemy whispering these lies that are confusing you, or it's your own mental drama getting in the way, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you see it for what it is. You recognize it. You see that it's stopping you from doing what God has called you to do. And you're like, okay, God, what is going on here and how can I move forward? So coming to God with this struggle, with this in prayer, and using these steps here. I'm going to give you 3 steps that you can do to break through this cycle of inaction and get unstuck so that you can start moving forward. So number 1, recenter yourself on your mission. So get clear on what God has called you to do and remind yourself that He is the one that gave you this idea. He is the one that will lead you on what to do and how to do it. And your job is simply to say, yes, Lord, I'm here. So one of the struggles that we all probably have, I know I do, is that we sort of take the idea from God and we're like, thanks, God, I've got it. And then we try to logic it to death. That's not really a word, but we use our logic to try to make sense of what we're supposed to do next. And when we do that, when we get all in our own heads and into our own ability and into our own power and knowledge and all of that, we're going to get confused because we don't know what's happening in 2 minutes. We don't know the best option. We don't know the right path because we don't. And a number of paths could work, right? So we really have to remember that we're not the ones leading the way here. God is, and just remember that He has brought this business to you for a reason, and He's not going to just abandon you. He is leading you and guiding you, but you have to keep focusing on Him. Okay, so that's number 1, to just recenter yourself. Number 2 is, with all the noise online about what you can do and how you can do it, you've got to get really clear on God's vision for you and your business and how He wants you to reach people and what He's wanting you to do. Because, is there YouTube or podcast or courses or memberships? There's all of these options. And when you sit in that space, that can get really confusing. And on one hand, it feels like you're doing your due diligence, right? You're studying and you're learning about all the options. And that's fine. And that is needed in some capacity. But when it starts confusing you, and when you feel like the amount of information and the amount of options you have feels so overwhelming that you can't take a step forward, that's when you need to come back to these steps I'm giving you and ask yourself these 4 questions. Number 1, who am I called to serve? There's a person on your heart, whether you really know about it or not. There's somebody you're called to serve. Is it moms? Is it dads? Is it caretakers? Is it, empty nesters? Like, who is it that you're feeling could benefit or who needs the thing that you're offering? And that's going to help you get really clear on how you're going to reach that person, right? It's going to give you these ideas for what to do next. So who is the person you're called to serve? What's the message you're going to give them? And another way to say what's the message is what's the thing that you're helping them with? It could be the message. It could also be the, like if you're doing a service, right? So I've done websites for people. I've created websites, and that message there is simply that I am helping them achieve their goals by removing the website stress from their life, right? So the message isn't you're going to be amazing. It's that you have something to do. You have this calling, you have this business, this purpose, and I'm going to help you create the website to get you there, right? So it could be if it's coming from a service-based point, or like maybe you have a product, like a physical product, like art or something you create, jewelry or something. Think about your message. What is your message with your product? Number 3 is how are you going to serve them? So like I was saying, maybe, so let's take my business, for example. So I'm called to serve moms who are in their career and they feel stuck. The message is that they don't have to stay there, that God has given them a purpose and a calling, and they can do it, like empowering them. How am I going to serve them? I have coaching and courses and different things to help them do that, right? And then how am I going to reach them? So that's this podcast. I am reaching women through this podcast, through social media, through different things. So just to go over the 4 again. So who are you called to serve? What's the message? How are you going to serve them? And how are you going to reach them? And the reason I ask it this way is because a lot of times, like I said, you get overwhelmed with all the different options online. So if you look at these questions and you ask yourself, okay, I'm going to serve moms with little kids. Well, then that tells you there are certain places online and they're not other places. They're probably not on Snapchat, right? So don't even do that or whatever. I don't know. They're probably not on Twitter. They're probably on Instagram or Facebook, right? Or if you're going to talk about how you're going to serve them, if you're going to be creating physical products for them, let's say jewelry, then it might really make sense for you to either start an Etsy shop or to start your own e-commerce shop. The question isn't if you can create a course about jewelry making or something. You have something very specific. You know that you're going to be creating a product. So that means that you don't need to worry about all the other online options. Your job is to create the product for the people you're supposed to create them for. And then the last one, how am I going to reach them? So if you think about blogging and you're like, I hate writing, then don't even listen to people who are talking about blogging as an option. Or if podcasting terrifies you and you're like, I hate talking that much, like I don't even know what I would say, then podcasting is obviously not what God's asking you to do, right? I mean, granted, in that moment, I think about Moses, how he was like, I can't talk, God. Like, what are you talking about? God knew differently. But, if you know deep down that the thing that you're supposed to do is not podcasting, then don't do it, right? Even if podcasting is the hot thing, it doesn't matter. If God is not calling you to start a podcast and you would hate talking like that, then maybe that's not the right thing for you, right? But maybe you're like, I would love to write blog articles and have people find them, and I'd love to give them information, and then that blogging is the thing for you. So when you ask yourself these questions, you're going to be suddenly equipped with this vision of who God's calling you to serve and how. And this will suddenly get very clear for you on what you should do next, because it'll help you decide one step at a time on the next direction that you can take. So if you know that you're supposed to serve a certain person in a certain, doing a certain thing, you can walk that way. You can go in that direction. If you know that you're supposed to speak and God is calling you to do a podcast, then you don't even wonder if YouTube or blogging is something that you should do right now, right? All you know is podcast. And so then the next question is, how do I do a podcast? That's your first step, right? Use those questions to filter out choices so that you can focus on what you know to be true and then move in that direction. I might go deeper with this on another podcast episode, but I'm reading through the Moses' story, and this just stood out to me the other day, and it's coming to mind now, so I want to share it here, which is when God called Moses to go to Egypt, how much faith did it take for Moses to start walking toward Egypt? Like all that time in between God called him and he actually arrived in Egypt. And I need to look it up. I don't know how far it actually is, but he was in the wilderness and he had to go back to Egypt. So all of those steps, all of that walking is him counting on God's going to be there. God's going to do what he said he was going to do. I don't know what's really going to happen when I get there. Yes, God told me, but I have to believe him. I have to physically keep walking. He took his whole family with him too. He has to go in to see Pharaoh, like each one of these steps, until God shows Moses that it's going to happen the way God said it was going to happen. Moses didn't know for sure that it was going to happen that way. Those are all steps of faith. And I was just thinking, all he knew is obviously God told me to go to Pharaoh and go to Egypt. So he just starts walking toward Egypt. So in the same way, what has God given you? What is the thing that you're supposed to do? That's why you got to recenter yourself on these 4 questions so that okay, I'm supposed to serve this person in this way with this message. And so therefore I at least need to be walking in that direction. And so often we want to know before we step, right? And it's actually through action that you're going to gain the clarity and the confidence. This is where our faith comes in. Just like I was saying with Moses, if you know that God has put this vision on your heart, then you walk. You might not know what's going to happen or even how, but you do know that you've got someone to serve, you've got a gift or a talent that can help them, and that God's asking you to share that. So this is your walk of faith, that God will show up, that he will lead you to the right people, and the right people will be led to you. It's the heart that matters, right? Remember that. When we walk in faith, trusting God for our lack, we don't know what's coming up. We don't know how it's going to go. That's when God is with you. And that's where he can really show up and do big things and really surprise you, because you're like, I did not even see that coming. But God knows it's coming, right? But you have to walk. Moses would have never done any of the things he did had he not walked to Egypt. So I hope that encourages you today. As always, if you need any help with this, if you are stuck, yes, I gave you these tips and steps to be able to do it on your own, but sometimes you just need to talk to somebody, and it really helps to have somebody on the outside looking in at your business. And I don't know about you, but I'm a verbal processor. So when I can talk it out with somebody, I get so much clarity. So if that's you, I would love to support you. Go to mamawithacalling.com/coaching, and you can get a free 30-minute call. Or if you're wanting to purchase a call, maybe you've already booked a free call with me before, then you can get a 90-minute clarity session where it's 90 minutes on a call with me and then a week of Voxer follow-up support. You can find that at mamawithacalling.com/clarity. All right. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. And in the meantime, keep pursuing your calling. Thanks for listening to the Mama with a Calling podcast. As always, you'll find the show notes for today's episode at mamawithacalling.com/podcast. Really quick before you head out, are you loving these episodes? To make sure this podcast gets in the ears of as many mamas as possible, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. I'm going to be reading your reviews on the podcast, so I can't wait to hear from you. Also, if you know someone that needs to hear these episodes, grab a screenshot and share it on Instagram, and don't forget to tag me at Mama with a Calling so I can share it in my stories. Until next time, keep pursuing your calling.